Morning, everyone. This is Russell Rucker, and I'm here for another constitutional talk. Now, let's go back to 1765. The Stamp Act has been passed, and there's much conflict. Our founders, some of the radicals, are searching homes, and they're searching government offices. If they find stamps, they are burning them. The whole purpose of the Stamp Act was to raise funds following the French and Indian War, or as Britain called it, the 7-Year War. As it was really expensive and they were trying to recoup the costs. Our founders responded. Massachusetts in particular wrote a resolution to form a Stamp Act Congress because they wanted the colonies to get together and have some kind of united front against what Britain was doing. Now, the Stamp Act Congress met in New York City, in City Hall, what's now called Federal Hall, but that building no longer exists. The delegates of 9 counties from Virginia to North Carolina attended. There were 27 delegates, and many you wouldn't even recognize their name. But there were likes of John Dickinson, who later wrote Letters from a Farmer to Philadelphia, Christopher Gadsden, who designed the Gadsden flag, the one with the snake, "Don't tread on me." And then you had the Livingstons, both Philip and Robert, Thomas McKean, James Otis, who was one of the Loyal Nine, Caesar Rodney, John Rutledge. But like I said, many people you wouldn't even recognize. So in June 1765, Massachusetts Assembly, they drafted this petition with the intent of communing together. So they sent this petition out to the different colonies, and with the idea of meeting. And when news reached England, they were really disturbed that the colonists would get together and meet at all. In fact, the Lords of Trade wrote the king complaining about what the colonists were doing. On September 30th, delegates began to arrive in New York, and the governor declared it an illegal meeting. But keep in mind, the governors of these colonies, they were appointed by the King of England. They weren't elected as they are today. If you have a governor of your state and you elect him. No, they were appointed by the king. Our colonists, and the intention was to ensure unity of the British colonies. They were not asking for independence. They were trying to achieve a certain amount of unanimity. They were not thinking themselves as independence people. They were thinking themselves as the most loyal subjects of the king. And that's what they would continually claim to be. There's no record of the debate. And there's only one journal account of the Stamp Act Congress, which makes it a little harder to know what individually they were thinking and what they were citing. But they did draft several documents. One of the documents that they drafted was called the Declaration of Rights and Grievances. Now, this item was really meant just for discussions amongst each other, a political debate. It was not meant to be sent to the king or really for any other purpose. It's kind of like when a think tank gets together today and they write up some documents, and they're trying to get people to think more about the issues that they're presenting. Now, they divided themselves into committees, and some of the things that they produced was a memorial to the House of Lords and a declaration to the House of Commons. And these were things intended to be sent to Parliament. And they were lofty, they were throwing accolades onto the British throne, onto the crown. They had nothing against the crown. They considered themselves British subjects. And as British subjects, as such, they were loyal to the king, to the crown, and to the Kingdom of England, Commonwealth. So what you need to understand here is they weren't trying to cause any trouble. What they wanted was a repeal of the Stamp Act. Okay? And the Parliament refused to hear the petitions. They refused to hear the petitions because they didn't believe that they had any right to gather and meet anyway, that it was an illegal meeting, that there's no reason to even look at something that was produced by people that weren't even supposed to be gathering. But they did repeal the Stamp Act. But then they passed the Declaratory Act. The Declaratory Act was an act declaring parliamentary authority over the colonies. See, this was one of the things that the colonists were trying to say, that without any representation back in England, they felt that they had no authority to do things like raising taxes on the colonists, for instance. They thought that they were the ones that should decide how the colonies ran, not England. And in the Declaratory Act, Britain declares that they are the sovereign, and it's up to them to decide what happened in the colonies. After all, they were all British subjects. And this is what really comes to play and really is the big dispute between the two groups, between England, the mother country, and the colonists. It wasn't just the American colonies. You had Canadian colonies. You had colonies all over the world. They had gone to places like Australia, India, even at certain points in time. There were lots of these different colonies around the world. They were exploring, they were setting up colonies for trade, and they were trading with England. All their colonies were trading with England back and forth for whatever goods they could get out of whatever area it was in. So for like our New England, they were getting a lot of timber, a lot of different types of timber. If you were building boats, you needed certain types of timber. It wasn't just pine. You had oak, and you had all kinds of different hardwoods that were. Some were better for a mast, some were better for floorboarding. Yeah, so you had all these different kind of makes, so they wanted these goods sent back. And the other thing was furs and trading goods, beaver pellets, all kinds of things that were being brought back to England, and then we're producing tobacco, cotton, wheat's being milled, and that's one of the reasons we're engaging in trade with the West Indies. And of course, Britain has a vested interest in pushing for the slavery issue and to have more slaves over here. And they really were the pusher of the slave trade and trying to they felt that slavery was a way to get more product and cheaper. And so they were engaged in this trade along with the trade of all kinds of other goods. So the idea of the colonists and the colonies was to get goods from here to England, and of course, then they're selling goods back to us. They're selling musical instruments and pottery, dinnerware, all kinds of different things that are being transferred back and forth. Potash, raw minerals. So really, it was important to them. But they wanted to maintain control over the colonies, and the colonists wanted to be more independent. At this point, they weren't trying for full independence. They were just trying to get along with England. So each stage of this conflict, from the Stamp Act to the Sugar Act, to the Molasses Act, all these things that they were passing in England to govern the colonies became, in effect, a problem with the colonists themselves, because they felt they had no say in their own lives. And this really is what comes to play today. You know, we elect a president, we elect senators, we elect federal House members, and they sit in Washington and they dictate to us. They pass laws on our behalf, but we do have a say there. This is kind of the same thing. We're dealing with a federal bureaucracy, and they were dealing with a bureaucracy on the other side of the ocean. If that makes sense to you, to understand a little better about what they were dealing with. The difference is we elect those representatives, and the colonists in England had no say in those representatives. They were just sent to us, and we were ordered to adhere to the dictates of the crown, the various governors of the colonies. And this is a big difference. And this is why the argument about no taxation without representation came about. I hope that helps you better understand a little bit about what we're talking about. The Stamp Act Congress worked on these items, and Parliament basically ignored us, which was probably not the best thing to do at the time. Well, that's it for today. I hope you took something from my talk, and we'll catch you next time on the next Constitutional Talk. You folks have a good day now. We'll see you next week. As always, liberty is important, and keep that in mind. Bye for now.